Hello, and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Podcast. This is the back of the bus session.
Hello and welcome to the Old Farm Bus Back of the Bus Sessions podcast. Today I've got a really cool guest with me, a massive talent, and I think we're going to be mates after this because I can feel a vibe here, man, and I really like you. So welcome aboard, Chapman. Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Do you feel the energy in that?
I do. Literally, I was saying that like as soon as I walked on the farm, it's like such a vibe.
Oh, thank you, dude.
Good.
Hello, how you doing? Come on, see everything. Here's
Literally,
a pig.
Yeah.
Woo!
Literally.
I'm just feeling that today. I'm very much a seasonable person.
Yeah.
And the summer, whew,
It's just
speaks to my soul.
all round, doesn't it? It's
Yeah.
just like everything's good about it.
Do you struggle in the winter? Are you all right?
I think it depends. I mean, it just depends on how. Some days I'll wake up and I'll just be like, I just can't be arsed with today. Like, I just don't want to do it. But then other days, I think in the summer, if the weather's better, it makes you wake up more often than not more happy.
I'm probably quite a bipolar person. If we were going to put a label on it, I'm a 10 or a 2.
Yeah.
In my life, I've had that. I've learned to deal with it and learn a lot about myself. But you seem very cool, man. Where do you float around?
I feel like I'm normally at the topper end of the spectrum, but it just depends. Like,
what do your lows
really
get to, though? I feel like you'd still be at a 6.
Well, no, my lows do get really low.
Do they?
They do get like incredibly low. Like I remember, like probably 2-3 years ago, like I was diagnosed with like severe anxiety and all that kind of stuff. So my lows can get low, but I normally try and, like, over the past couple of years, I've had counselling, that kind of thing. So it's like it prepares you to.
You've been to counselling.
Yeah,
then? Excellent.
Yeah.
How have you found that experience?
It was a strange. It was really weird at first because I wasn't a very open person. I didn't talk about like feelings and
emotion.
who I was and that kind of thing. So it was one of them weird things that after the first, like maybe the first 2 hours, it was just a bit awkward. Like, so how are you feeling, Jack? Yeah, I'm alright, kind of thing. And then it got to the third session. I can remember sat there bawling my eyes out.
Really?
Like, fully like.
Wow, man.
It just opened. It was one of the. It was like open the door, and it was once it was open, it was just like a flow of everything.
Consciousness.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Wow.
And it was like an eye-opening experience because I feel like that was a moment for me where I realised who I was as a person. And it really opened my eyes, sort of seeing the world slightly differently to. I think it was before it was a bit blinkered because I didn't talk about anything. It was just kind of like, if I look straight ahead, then I don't have to
think about this.
Yeah, I don't have to think about anything else going on.
Access all this.
That's it, exactly. And I
become a bit too overbearing for you.
That's it, exactly. But I think opening up, you realise actually there's so much more to the world emotionally than what you were experiencing before.
Why do you think you had the blinkers on? And I love how quick we got into the emotional side. We're such artists.
Yeah, that's it. Just getting in deep, straight away. It's a weird one because actually for sort of 5 years ago, I went to the doctors like feeling short of breath and like experiencing these symptoms which originally were diagnosed as asthma.
Okay, wow.
So I went and they diagnosed me with asthma, and I probably for 3 years or so had I was on different medication. I went back 6 months later, it's not working, I'm still feeling breathless and still feeling, and 6 months trying every single thing in the book that they had for asthma.
Yeah.
And I went about 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, and he was like, oh well maybe it's anxiety. And that was when it kind of clicked because he described anxiety to me, and I mean, I didn't know anything about mental health really beforehand because it wasn't something that was necessarily talked about. Especially if, sort of 3 or 4 years ago when you're sort of 15, 16.
Of course.
You don't really get that. It's just, you'll get over it in a bit. Or
especially as males, truthfully.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, 100%. We don't connect over that.
Yeah, and
usually.
I think that's at all ages, whether you're 16, 17 or, in
32,
midlife, 50s, whatever. It's just the way that it is. And and it was that moment where it was sort of triggered to me that that it was anxiety, and I started linking that to the situations I was feeling short of breath in, and I realised
Wow.
that explains
It
so much.
absolutely makes sense. So it was when you were in high pressured situations, or
It was for me mainly it was social situations. Like for example, I found that in sort of, like for example, the summer holidays, I'd be absolutely fine, which is the point where you'd normally get asthma, like you've got like your hay fever and all that kind of stuff affecting the asthma. I was fine. September came, going back to school, September, October, November, I'd experienced it really bad. And it was kind of that, I think it was interacting in those social situations and just generally going back in school life where you've got so many people, so much going on. It was obviously like really affecting me. And then it would, as I was getting more into it and getting back into it later on in the year, it'd be fine. Then Christmas holidays would come, 2 weeks off, you know, wouldn't see anybody, wouldn't, you know, it was just family. And then you go back into it and it was that same thing, January, February, March.
Wow, I get you.
It was like hitting me again. So
was it really vital and important that you got diagnosed? Do you think that's helped you prevail in life? Because I just find it so fascinating what you're talking about. How many people have physical symptoms and emotions and things they're going forward with, and then try and put a scientific basis on this, or try and say, oh, it must just be asthma, it must be this, when it could be undiagnosed mental health that they're actually experiencing. And I've never heard of that before, 100%. But it's quite fascinating.
It is, yeah, and it's strange because to me, like you say, undiagnosed mental health, it's one of them things that mental health, in my opinion, should be one of the forefronts. It should be what you're thinking about first, right? You're experiencing this, well, is it possible that you could be experiencing, you know, these social interactions that are, you know, distressing or whatever it is. So the fact that they went through all the asthma treatments, I was on like 6 inhalers that I'd tried, different 6 inhalers. They'd put me on tablets and all that kind of stuff to try and tackle it. And the last thing on the list was mental health. Yeah. Which in my...
does feel like it should be the other way around completely.
It just represents the world we live in, really, because it just shows how untalked about and how... In terms of the system, how unimportant mental health is. Yeah. And it's really worrying. It's really...
On a similar guard, I was looking at a podcast the other day, and a documentary, but it's on addiction. And this doctor just couldn't fathom addiction out in a broken system, in poor people, in people suffering and struggling with the climate they're in and everything like that. So what the advocate of abstinence-based recovery was talking about in this documentary was, we need to fix people's souls, we need to look inside of this, whereas the doctor had a very medical way of looking at addiction, and we need to put them on is it methadone a lot of people are on for their addictions? It's sort of it's still a substance, and it's still, they get addicted to that. And it was this abstinence-based recovery where it's about mentality, about the mind, about coaching. And the other side, I think they can be balanced, and I think they can be brought
100%.
together, but they were very polar in what they were advocating and preaching. And it did sound that I was listening to somebody with a very scientific mindset and couldn't fathom the other person's side. We have the exact same attitude in mentality and in mental health completely.
I think that you do get that a lot, whereas where you see sort of the so-called professionals talking about illness and that kind of thing, and they look at it from a scientific perspective, but you know, like anxiety, the best medicine for me was obviously the counselling. So it was the talking about it, the working out what I was struggling with and what was causing me anxiety,
going to the root.
That's it, and then trying to figure out a way past it, rather than looking at the medical aspects. Well, this is releasing endorphins, and this is doing this, and this is doing that. You just think, well, no, scrap that. That doesn't make any sense, because, as well, the other thing is everybody copes with things completely differently.
Individuality.
With mental health, that's the thing. With everybody experiences it completely differently to everyone else. You know, it may be similar, but everybody has different things, so you can't necessarily give a medication for it that's going to be, you know, work for everyone, because no one's going to experience exactly the same things. It's not like a bacteria that's going to be causing everybody
completely.
The same thing.
I love how you're talking. I remember when I fell to depression, I was about 16, 17. And I couldn't work it out at all what was going on. I was just fatigued all the time, absolutely knackered. But then I look at my life and what I was going through before I went travelling, so I was probably 16. And I was just on this cycle of everything was rigid. It was go to work 9 to 5, come home. I liked my boxing at the time. Knacker myself out by boxing, go and see my partner at about 8 o'clock, fall to sleep really quickly because I'm just like done all that. And it was on this cycle of a rat race, chasing that. And I went to the doctors eventually because I thought I can't live like this. I really was waking up dread all the time, just thinking I wished I wasn't existing. I wished I wasn't on this planet anymore. And I went there, and one doctor that I went to had so much compassion and was so lovely, but the first one was all scientific and medical advice, and how it was fluoxetine I think they put me on, so this medication. I remember taking it, and for a week or maybe 2 I just felt zombied, completely disassociated from self. I felt really uncomfortable, and I thought, if I do this for a year or however long, this is going to be my character from then. This is going to be my sense of self. And even though I don't want to be so polar all the time and up here and over there, and I love that exists in my life though, because that's what makes it so beautiful.
I think it's character at the end of the day as well. It adds something to yourself. And I've got, my sister was on medication for depression, and I got friends who were on it, and it's that same thing that was just it makes your emotions so flat, which in I know obviously a lot of people struggle with it, but in some cases, having flat emotions can make things worse because you're totally out of touch with things. And I'm not saying that obviously the medication is bad, because obviously it works for a lot of people.
Exactly. We're being nuanced with this conversation. And I just had a chat before this with Tori Sheard, if you know Tori. Lovely girl. And we were just saying how nuanced conversations are and can be, but for some reason as a society, we like to black and white things. We sort of say it's a really bad thing or it's a really good thing. I've gone through bouts of psychosis before, schizophrenia, really to the lows, and it was self-induced in the end. I dabbled with substances and so on. I don't advocate it, but it did help me in a part of my life. But because I went down the rabbit hole, I got stuck in that. I didn't go through medication at the time, but perhaps I should have, really. I've got through it. I feel good now. I'm enlightened from it. But my life was like the Truman Show. Or what's that other film? It's like Shutter Island. Have you seen that? Dude, my grandma is my best friend on the planet. I thought she was trying to kill me. Like, well, we've gone through all this together, and now you want to kill me? Honestly, mental, it was really deep into the realms and the wraps of it. But I'm quite tenacious, so I decided to just get through it on my own accord. And I did. I locked myself away. I didn't see people for ages. I was quite big on the Nottingham scene for a long time, just out with people, motormav, maze nights. And the moment I knew I was losing it and slipping, I just went home, retreated, and did what was right for me. But I do feel how deep I got and how scary I know the mind can go. I can totally see why medication is important to certain 100%. People, because the daft things I could have ended up doing in that time, it would have been nice to have just plateaued, learnt to grips with it. But I think what it is we need to know that it's not the end goal. It's a sort of surfacer to say, here,
stepping stone.
Step here. This is going to calm you. We're going to build from this, and we're going to build out of this. But I don't think it should ever be the end point and the end goal.
I 100% agree with you. I think there's always hope to work with, and I think that can be something that a lot of people experience with mental health, is that they feel like there is no light at the end of the tunnel, and actually, taking those steps, the medication, and then onto whatever it can be the medication that almost gives the light at the end of the tunnel for a lot of people. Completely.
That gives you a bit of your rational mindset to play with again.
Exactly.
Like, hang on a minute, that was really far down deep in there, and you don't get that sort of third person perspective. But a medication can sort of just stop you in the track for a second and go, by the way,
yeah.
you do need to start reflecting and being thoughtful of how we can get over this.
Yeah,
and you can get there.
Yeah,
mate.
exactly.
What a great start to a podcast.
I'm getting straight in deep.
Have you? I mean, you're quite young though. Still, I can't believe it. But you're 19 tomorrow.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, my brother.
I'm borderline excited and not excited about, because it's just another day really in lockdown, isn't it? You can't really do much.
But we're not a million miles off of pubs though.
No, that's true.
When is it?
12th,
April
isn't it?
the 12th.
I think, yeah.
I know that because the guy I work with, I do removals as well a little bit, and it's his birthday on the 12th. So he's just
gonna be a
happy birthday. But during all this, you have got such an old soul, mate, and a beautiful mindset.
Thank you.
We are going to be mates out of this. Have you found huge struggles in the COVID world then, in these times, or?
I think it's a weird, because as I was sort of saying earlier before we started, about sort of education, how it treated me, and when I left and did my GCSEs. So the year that I was doing my GCSEs, year 11, my parents split up, which wasn't, it happens to a lot of people, I know, but it was something that to me, it didn't settle well with me, and it wasn't a good breakup. It was a bit messy. There was a lot of stuff that went on between my mum and dad, and it was like for a year I didn't speak to my mum because my dad was, it was sort of filling me with information that wasn't necessarily true.
I get you, man.
And then it's sort of finding that middle ground between, getting one side of the story, getting the other side, and getting the middle ground.
I bet you've grown loads from this, haven't you?
Well, I think this is it. So after that happened, it was sort of, it came to September, I went to college to study level 3 business, which I was on for until the end of November, and I turned up to one of the lessons 15 minutes late, and we had a supply teacher who was the head of the college.
Oh wow.
And she was just a bit like, what are you doing, turn up late to my lesson, you've not handed in this work, you've not done this, it's unacceptable. And I said, well, I don't want to be here, so what do you expect me to do? And she was like, well, go home then. So I went home and I received a letter in the post saying my parents said your son's been written off the course.
Wow.
So this was sort of the end of November, December time, and I was not knowing what I wanted to do. Like I'd gone from wanting to be a car salesman to a mechanic to everything under the sun, being and it was sort of, what do I want to do with my life? And at that point, obviously, I couldn't start another college course until the next year came round, and I was sort of stuck in that middle ground, and I sort of had 6 months of pretty much doing nothing, of just watching Netflix, sort of. But to me, that was probably the most beneficial 6 months of my life, because it gave me time to step away from everything, kind of look at the life that I was living through, sort of what I was doing to myself, and it was just seeing everything from almost like an outside perspective, rather than being engrossed with it all. I had that time to just sort of step back and go, right, okay, this is where life is going. I need to adjust. And it was at that point where I was starting to, when I went to the doctors, it was anxiety, everything came through, started counselling, and that sort of year to me, sort of the 6 months of sort of almost finding myself in a way, and then the counselling and everything, it I feel like it really progressed me as a person, and it was so important for me to understand what I wanted to do in the future and where I was. And it was that year where I started picking up the guitar more, because I had that time off, and I'd always enjoyed music, I always wanted to do music, but it was never, in my mind, it was never a realistic goal. It was like something you do on the side. It's never, it's one of them dead end jobs that people say, it's so hard to get into. And
just talking about that, I mean, was that fed to you, being told that you can't pursue music ever? Was it sort of a...
I don't think it was necessarily fed to me directly, but it was the indirectness of... my parents were so supportive through whatever I wanted to do, so it definitely wasn't down to them. But I think it was just, in general, I think the main assumption is that, you know, music is a really difficult path to go down, but actually when you sort of look into it, there's so many more options than just performing on a stage. There is so many options there which I hadn't really experienced before. So that was when I decided to go to college. I'd studied music, which was supposed to be a 2-year course. Got onto the course, and I can remember I got on about 2 months in, and I was sat with Charlie.
The man,
Big
shout
the legend.
Out to that boy. Thank you, man.
And we were just having a chat about everything, and I can remember just saying, I hate confetti. People, I don't know whether anyone's had the same experience as me, but it was crap, like really bad.
So as in contrived, or I mean, this is just your experience.
It was the teachers. They just were useless. They didn't know what they're on about. I'd sort of had a lot of experience at Mount Street at that point. I'd sort of been with Charlie and that kind of thing, and I can remember one of the things that I said to him was, I've learnt more here in a day than I had at 6 months at confetti. And it was just, for me, it was a really bad experience. I mean, I'm not saying that it won't be for anybody else, because, you know, it's a great college. I know a lot of people who have enjoyed it, but to me, it just wasn't beneficial at all. It was almost like taking a step back in my eyes, that it just wasn't benefiting me at all. So I left, sort of got the 1 year qualification out of it, and then I just decided to leave, because at that point I knew that I wanted to do music, and that was my career path, and that wasn't going to help me whatsoever. You know, it was going to get me into a university course. It was going to then take me down working in a studio, which production wise is great, but I was already starting to do that at Mount Street. You know, I was learning these bits. I was getting the experience in the studio, that
real life experience.
Well, in our industry, you know, because we're both involved with this side of things, you know, experience and knowing how to work the equipment is way more than any qualification.
Piece of paper.
Yeah, exactly. Because, you know, at the end of the day, a lot of people do have the qualifications. Charlie went to, you know, uni for however many years at Falmouth, and you know, look where he's got himself. He's incredible. But then you look at other lines of things where you've got musicians who don't have any qualifications, don't have anything to their name, but they're some of the best musicians you'll ever meet.
It's just it's picking that path, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
But if you vehemently know what you want to do, truthfully feel it inside you, it's your passion, it's bubbling, whatever course you decide to go on for that, if it is university, if it is further education in some way, or if it's just being out there, going to every studio you can find and say, can I work for you? Can I do this? Meeting artists. You'll find your way, because it means something to you. And that's it, I think everyone needs to know who they are, what they work best in, and they're an individual. So they'll make it work for them, because there's some things that uni just can't teach. Impossible to teach. It can give you all this academic knowledge and give you an idea of paths, but to learn tenacity, to learn sort of self-belief and networking and all those huge fundamentals, nobody can really teach you that.
It's life experience as well at the end of the day. I remember that was another thing that Charlie said, was talking about what you can learn at uni is, you know, unbelievable amounts of knowledge about, you know, how all the engineering equipment works, and what mics work best, and you know, which plugins to use and all that kind of stuff. You know, it's great, but the other side of things is that to be a producer, to be working in any form of hospitality, in terms of, you know, where you're dealing with people, you've got to have the people skills to do it as well. And there are a lot of people who don't. You know, they may have all the skills in the world, but when it comes to talking to them, they're like a brick wall. And you're like, you're never going to get anywhere with that kind of.
I think I listened to that on an Elon Musk podcast. He was talking, but he was on about these interns.
Yeah.
And because the ones that had all been to uni knew to clock off at 5 o'clock, it was that was their time, and then it was their going and socialising, drinking time.
Yeah.
Whereas he got these guys from the Bronx, I think it was, in the interns.
Yeah.
But because they only knew the hustle, they only knew graft, really hard work, they wouldn't stop. They were just working as
until they'd finished.
Like he works. They just kept going, kept grafting. They wouldn't know how to stop. Which, there's probably a balancing act in all this, isn't there? Because
100%.
I didn't go to uni, and when I decided I wanted to become something and make something out of my life, I would do sickening hours, like ridiculous. People still say, "Do you just work all the time?" But now having a family and a daughter and this side of my life in reflection, I've learned to sort of harmonise it and put the two together and know when I can give 110% and edit, make here, do bits there, but then I'll be reflective and thoughtful of, have I been neglecting my family? Where am I here? Do I actually feel run down? Could I give myself a bit of time? So I think a huge thing to just learn on your journey is self-discovery, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
It's just knowing what you can give.
It's back to that mental health aspect again, is that it's discovering who you are and how far you can push yourself without becoming disconnected with everything.
I think if I went to uni now, I'd be cool. I'd be absolutely fine with it. I've had time to mature. I love learning. Learning is such a cool thing. I remember my ego got the grasp of me about 5 or 6 years ago when I was struggling. I was like, bollocks, I've learnt it all now. I'm just learning now. But then I got a slap in the face from my ego. And I realised, I'm on a constant learn. I can keep going on YouTube tutorials and doing that. But if I went to uni, I'd be a good listener now. I do think we rush with education. Do you know how it's set up? We go to primary school. We're still graded in primary school. We value ourselves on these grades, so we're working up towards that. Then we get into secondary, and all we're thinking about really in secondary is year 11 GCSEs. It's the big Voldemort monster.
From day one. Really.
And if you do well in that, then well done, you can go into this institute. And it's all sort of spoon-fed, hand-fed for a certain genre of people. And we just don't need that. Some people can work with that and it excels well for them. My sister's academically built and she's a solicitor, amazing person, looks after like human rights, and she's awesome. I'm totally different. I wasn't wired for that. It doesn't make sense to send me into that exact same path. But we are taught to do that, and it doesn't add up.
You're right. It's almost like words are spooned into our mouth. It's like the initial is like primary, secondary, uni, primary, secondary, or sixth form uni. It's that's the way that it goes. And I mean, personally, from my opinion, the education system is just rubbish anyway.
Warped.
Yeah, exactly. It teaches you completely the wrong things about what is important. I mean, there's nowhere near enough life experience or just general. I mean, it's that age-old thing that people say, like, "Oh, why don't they teach us to pay our taxes?" And teach us that. But there is massively truth, because you don't get anything out of that, and it's almost like,
and the mentality.
Well, they teach you the basics that you need, but they don't teach you how to link it together to work. They teach you maths, they teach you algebra, but they don't teach you how to connect that to an everyday life situation. Which,
I remember blank out saying to a teacher, "Sir, why are we doing this?" My biggest question was
so
why?
many times.
And he didn't have an answer. He just went, "We just do it." You just do it.
It's what the book says.
Mate, as soon as that got responded back to me, I gave up. Honestly,
faith in
I
it.
started talking to my mates and just like having a laugh. I did end up eventually getting asked to not come back into most of the lessons. Let me go to a couple, but I wasn't being nasty or aggressive or unfair with it. I just felt unjust, and in what we're doing, it didn't make sense to me. It was all alien. And then when you ask them questions, they'll just say the same jargon to you.
That's it. It's like that's what they're all trained to. It's like they're trained to sort of not brainwash you, but in a sense that, well, that's just what we're told to do, so that's why we do it.
I must say, genuinely, I go into schools now.
Yeah.
And I work for an organisation called Independent Thinking,
Okay.
which is like the little fish going the other way.
Right.
But they really are different. And there are my Chrissy, my partner, is a teacher. There's wonderful people in the sectors that are there to teach their passion and what they love, and it's passion induced.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're right. The system is there to uphold a certain way of thinking, uphold a certain way of being. And there's so many good teachers that went in with the right morals, right compass, that are wanting to leave straight away because they see what the system does in the end. But I see it shifting though. I do. I think from when we were at school.
I hope so. I hope with everything that's kicked off recently, and just in terms of education, but in life in general, you know, with all the movements that have come across in the past year since COVID, that social media has induced, I hope that we'll start to see a change, not just in the education system, but in everyday life now.
Yeah, I think we will, how we approach one another.
Yeah, I hope so. I just, you know, it's one of them, there's a Harry Styles song called Treat People with Kindness. Yeah. And that, to me, like,
embodies everything we need
treat people how you want to be treated.
That's what the golden rule is. I got that done. It was in a song as well. Najabis. It's like a lo-fi beat.
Okay,
and this guy, he died when he was 26, but he was one of the greatest like producers of all time. And check out Najabis. But he had loads of ciphers on his track and rappers. Yeah. And one of them said, every day I'm measuring the hurt within the golden rule. And I was like, what on earth's that? And the golden rule is treat others as you wish to be treated. Yeah. It's said in each scripture in a different way, but the same message applies. And as soon as I saw that, I was like, right, that's what I want. Yeah, the golden rule.
Good to live by. Yeah.
I did listen to a podcast with somebody recently, and he said, what about though, not just treat others as you wish to be treated, but what about treat others as they wish to be treated? I kind of thought, that's a nice spin. Do you know what I mean?
It is, yeah. It's that inclusive.
Because what works for me might not work for them. Yeah. So just being cautious and conscious of what they're after and about.
That's it. It's putting yourself in their shoes and thinking, right, well, is this going to make them uncomfortable? Is this going to be... And it's just trying to adapt to your surroundings a bit.
Just not being a dick though. Knowing anything you do, even if you make mistakes, I think we should be absolutely fearless of making mistakes. Like it's fine to make mistakes. It's fine to say the wrong thing, but understand if you've said the wrong thing, what the right thing for that person is, and if it suits your moral compass. And if you go, I'm really sorry I offended you there, and I respect why you'd be offended there, and just being good with it.
Yeah, that's it. It's about apologize, even if you have. It's just admitting that you made the mistake, or that you said something wrong, and moving on from it. And it's
there is, because people can be offended, and sometimes if you act in a lovingly way and somebody's offended and you didn't mean to, and how they're offended, it's like comedians. They tell jokes and they speak of all these different platforms and genres and different people. Somebody's going to be offended on the way, and your responsibility isn't to censor everything you say, but build a good morals about you that you're doing in the best of kind of ways. And if they're offended, you do also have the right to sort of be like, well, I'm really sorry, but this is me too. Does that make sense?
I agree with you. I mean, there's so many comedians who have said it, but I think Ricky Gervais definitely says there's nothing you can't joke about, but it's the audience you joke about it to. And there is truth in that. There are some things that you shouldn't say that are out of line, but I think what is the point in life if you can't enjoy it and have a laugh? And I think there's that aspect of, if you can just if it's going to relieve an atmosphere, or just have a laugh, enjoy yourself, and not try and think about it too much. Because I think that's one thing at the moment where everybody's, especially with social media and what they're putting on there, thinking, what is this politically correct? Is this going to come back at me in 10 years time? Completely. Or whatever?
We don't want to be eggshelling. No authenticity comes out of eggshelling.
Yeah, exactly.
You're being very convoluted and just saying what those around you want to say in an echo chamber. I feel what we don't do a lot of the time as a people, as a species, is we just generalise things. We don't think of context.
Yeah.
So, you know, what I might make a joke about to my partner, I wouldn't necessarily say to somebody that I've only just met, or out in a group of people, or put on a public platform. Everything's contextual. So, you know, I've been through a death recently in the family, and our best way of countering that or overcoming that together, we just have a bit of a laugh about it together, because it makes us sort of smile. We're not malicious in any way, but we're just having a bit of enjoyment from something sad, and that makes us feel better. But if I was in a room full of people and there was mixed emotions and mixed feelings around it, I wouldn't start cracking out jokes and being not very compassionate about it. But it's just context.
It's trying to find light in a dark place, really, isn't it?
Completely.
And a lot of people cope with it differently, but I agree with you. That's one thing that, you know, I myself do, is in those situations where it is, you got to try and find the funny side to it, almost.
The playfulness of it.
That's it. And
but we'd connect over that, and in this context, if we weren't being filmed and putting it out somewhere, I'm sure me and you would have some common unity on that, and we'd be sharing some jokes and just making play of stuff. But I don't want to offend anyone. My objective isn't to go out there and cause offence and put people in spins that it's already a very polarised, hard world to live in. If you're coming from the best possible side of your nature, that is key to me. That's the truth.
As long as you know that your morals are right. Whether for whatever reason you make a comment where you know, people do when they go out for a drink with their mates, there's a group of 5 mates and one of them knows someone else and another 5 people join and they're having a laugh, and someone, you know, knows that in that 5 mates they could say this joke and it will go down well, or they'll know, but one of those people in that other 5 that's joined doesn't like it, and they instantly either don't like that person, or, you know, they have this sort of
animosity.
Exactly. Whereas, you know, it's you've just got to take a lot of things with a pinch of salt and realise that he said something, but his morals are in the right place, and, you know, maybe he read the situation wrong, shouldn't have said it, but just
it's the same
let
with
it be.
As a community, how we're basing ourselves. All of our ideas, all of our philosophies need to contribute into this pot that we put together, and we listen to, and we build our realities about it. Do you know what I mean? Does that make sense? So, you know, I might say something to somebody, an opinion that somebody completely disagrees with, but it doesn't have to just be vilified as hate speech, and it's completely going against that person's morals, therefore it should be cancelled out, it should be not spoken about. It should be a conversation adding in, because you know, even if it doesn't, it's a debate, and even if it doesn't align to you, it needs to be added into that pot where we can get by and work something out with it. For example, and I can say this, is like on social media recently, there was I love MMA and UFC. They're my sort of passions. I get up at 3 a.m, sit with my partner, I've got all my snacks out and I'm ready for it. And that a few years ago, there was a big debate, and it was in the trans community, and it was a fighter called Fallon Fox, was a famous case, who fought in the women's division, and she cracked a skull of one of her opponents, and a lot of the females in the division were saying it feels unfair, it doesn't feel like a fair fight. She physically almost seems stronger and scientists have said why this might be the case. Biologists have explained this. I put it up as an example, and I was doing it in a kind way. I just said I don't think this is right, and it was sort of witch hunt and attacked, and I got thrown stuff at, and, you know, I am quite passionate on that. I do feel I deserve the right to talk of that, because it's in my field that I'm really interested in. So to have the opinion on it just adds to conversation, and we should be able to conversate through it and come to some conclusion where we're both coming from loving places and good sides of our nature. There doesn't necessarily at the end of every conclusion have to be a right and a wrong either, but just be listened to.
Funny enough, it's a completely different subject, but we've got like on Facebook like a West Bridgeford community page. There's like, you know, all the people. So and there's a lady commented on it, something about basically where there's a power station near us, and it's being knocked down now, and they're on about applying to have it turned into a nuclear power station. So there's like one of these brand new nuclear fusion power stations, which could be the first in the world. And she'd shared the post from Nottigham Live or whatever it was, and then gone, well, has anybody started a petition against this? I can't believe this is happening. And the comments were ripping her to shreds. They were like, are you stupid? Like, you know, it's actually really positive, really good. You just seen nuclear and reacted against it. You know, it's not going to happen like Chernobyl, and all these like ripping in shreds. And in some cases, I think, there is a level of almost blindsiding and blinkering that they see nuclear, think it's dangerous, but actually nuclear fusion is completely different to what was happening in like Japan when the tsunami hit, and that was a nuclear power station, and Chernobyl as well. But it's completely different, and it's nowhere near as dangerous, but everyone's ripping her to shreds. But it's that education side of things where if someone had gone, oh, well, maybe, you know, she doesn't understand, so I'll educate her, or gone, do you realise that actually this, and this?
There's nothing really comes out of anger, is there?
This is it. And there was so many comments. There's probably, you know, maybe 500 comments just going all the way through, and she hadn't replied to any of them. And there were all these people going, oh, you stupid. You think, but what's the point in putting that on Facebook? If one, she's not even going to respond to it and not even going to comment on it. But it's just a waste of energy. You know, there's better ways of going about that kind of thing than just firing hate at people. And
have you learned how to conduct yourself on it then, sort of social media in general? Because I'm sure you've got to have been with me on a time where you've wasted your energy in timeless
I tell
debates.
You what, the amount of times actually where I've, you know, been lying in bed at night, someone said something, or maybe I've mentioned something, and it, you know, they've gone off at me, and I've typed out a 500 word thing and then deleted it because I've gone, you know what,
no, what am I doing?
What's the point? I'm wasting my energy. I may as well go, okay, sorry, and just go to sleep and end it there. And I've learnt to do that beforehand. I mean, I can remember when it was maybe a couple of years ago, before COVID, I was in a pub with my dad's an uncle and whatever. We were sat at this pub and having a discussion about politics. I come from a very political family from my mum's side. My grandma is hardcore Labour. She's always been red. Whatever, you know, she would never even think about voting Tory. That's you know, she hates them with a passion. My dad, on the other hand, hardcore Tory, because he runs a business. He, you know, and all he sees is the positive aspects of that. And I can remember being sat in this pub and having this conversation. It was about the time when Boris Johnson was standing up and it was Jeremy Corbyn, and we had this massive debate in this pub talking about this, and a woman from another table came over and sat with us and started ripping me to shreds because of my political views. She was a Tory, and she thought that I was stupid for having these well, that's it. Exactly. You know, for the right morals, really, let's be honest. And I was just sat there in amazement that, you know, there was someone so passionate about whatever they believed in, and they were so blindsided by it that they only saw the one thing, that she decided to come from the other side of the pub to sit down and rip me to shreds. And I thought, what is going on here?
Would you need,
why? What is the point?
That amount of
that's it.
Hurt and hatred in your heart. I find it funny with politics, because I know a lot of people that will only vote one way, and I don't think they care about the actual what that applies anymore, and what that party stands for. It's just you've picked a team now, and the funny thing is, we're all in this country together, a society together, a community together, and the ones that are polar either side, the one that's in power the polar side want them to fail.
Yeah.
It's like,
Yeah.
hang on, as a team, aren't we all one?
Yeah, well, that's it. You work together.
We've got to try and better the
Yeah.
systems, better the parties, and I don't want to constantly be battling. I'm very, I've got left heart, but I've got right minds and thoughts
Yeah.
about me where I'm taking all of it in and trying to piece out what's best. And, you know, there's a big inequality, problems we've got here. We've got class systems.
Yeah.
It's hugely important to know what a party stands for.
Yeah.
But don't wish them to do poorly when they're in place. We need to better what there is.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. It is again similar to education. It's, you know, people aren't educated on the subject that politics nowadays. There's the two main parties, Labour and the Conservatives in this country. They are so close to the centre nowadays that it's very difficult. You know, in some aspects.
Yeah.
But in some aspects, you look at some policies they have, it's very difficult to pick between the two. There are obviously a lot of, you know, it depends on what you look after. Businesses, you're going to vote Tory. General working class, you would normally say would vote for Labour or whatever. But it's a crazy world we live in, because there is so much political fight between what, you know. I can remember, it's funny, there's always, like you're saying, there's always those polars that one does one thing right and they say it's wrong. I can remember being sat at Sunday lunch, whatever, eating dinner, and there's been the political debate going on between my dad and my grandma, and my dad saying about Maggie Thatcher, which I know is a taboo word.
There we go.
But saying about, well, Maggie Thatcher sold off the council houses so everyday people could buy the homes, to which was a great thing. You know, it meant people could get on a property ladder. My grandma then goes, well, yes, but she didn't build more. So yes, she sold them off, but it meant that then the poor people who were trying to move into the council houses to have a home didn't have anywhere to live. So that one subject, which is, you know, a very small thing, but, you know, compared to politics, it's a very small section of it. But there are these two massive pulling opinions on it that, yes, it was a good thing, but it was a bad thing because of this. And my dad would never have pointed out but she didn't build more. And my
There's always going to be another side,
exactly,
isn't there?
that's it. So it's
when you open up one door, it opens up five other doors.
That's it, exactly. And it's just like an endless battle.
I've basically now, with social media, I post and ghost. So I do my thing, I look at the people I want to look at, I see your music, I see what Charlie's doing, I put my thing on because I love doing it, but I'm out of there. I'm going to try and live my life again and be in the world. But it's really interesting these times, and political correctness, politically aligned people, what they're often saying on platforms, there's a lot of P's in there, but what they're saying is, I want better. I am nice, I've got a kind heart, and I want better. And that is what they're trying to promote or say, but they're just doing it in very aggressive manners. And it doesn't seem to achieve anything for me. It doesn't seem to build on anything.
In some cases, I don't think there's a lot of gratefulness for what we do have now. A lot of it's taken for granted.
Dude, I was talking...
You think in the past 10 years, just how far we've come in terms of, you know, inequalities. Now, we've made massive steps, but it's suddenly like... but we need more. And I totally agree there's more.
Let's keep building. We're really in a blip of a time scale here. And, you know, technology been thrown at us. We're apes. We're little monkey minds, and we're just evolving. Where my sister works, and she's trying to gain status for lots of people. A lot of her clients are from Pakistan and other third world industries and countries. And they literally stone them to death if they're gay. In certain countries. The UFC fight I watched on the weekend is one of the most inspiring stories I've heard in a long time. Francis Ngannou. And he was from Cameroon. And he tried to come over to I think he tried to get to Spain, and he made that attempt 9 times.
Really?
It took him about 19 attempts to actually get immigration status to get there.
Wow.
But what they used to do when people got turned back from Cameroon to Spain, they used to just send them back across the Sahara Desert to die, in essence. And he kept having to just make that journey all the time. And now he's the heavyweight champion of the world in UFC, and he's just the most humble, incredible person, and all how he speaks is just a blessing to be on this planet, a blessing to be alive. He's worked really hard for it, and it's just because he's not had time to sit there in comfort, in privilege, and be so angry and polarized at everything, because he's living his life. Do you know what I mean? You can feel that pure ecstasy and love inside of him.
I think there are a lot of sports stars coming up now who, again, you're starting to see people who haven't necessarily had that privilege coming up, because of, they've come from these really, like, for example, I'm not massively into like MMA and that kind of thing, but for me, football, I'm big into football, right? So from my perspective, there's a guy called I think it's Amad Diallo or something like that, and he's just signed. He's a 19-year-old. He's just signed for Manchester United, and he was an immigrant who came from one of the sort of the third worldy countries, and came over on a boat to Italy. He went to Italy, and he just came, I think, with him and his brother or something, looking for like a better life. And he moved to Italy again as an immigrant. He was then talent spotted. Then got signed to one of these lower league clubs in Italy. He was then signed by one of the bigger ones, and it's the way that he's worked up from literally nothing. Within 2 years, 3 years, whatever, however long it is, he's managed now to be signed for Man United, and he's on this massive contract with them. And I don't think a lot of stories like that get covered enough, because
and he's been through genuine hardship, seeing
literally
true life and death situations in front of his eyes, and had to prevail through that.
Exactly.
And that is, I think people would benefit so greatly from going and seeing the world, but really seeing the world. You can backpack and get drunk and do what you can do here over in a hot climate, or you could go and live in some cultures and live in some different communities and see what their experiences are.
You were saying that you'd been travelling. Had you done that kind of thing then?
I did a year in Oz, a year in South Africa, and a few months in other areas like Thailand and places. But one thing I found interesting was, I think my mum thought, he's going to really learn a lesson here and see some hardships, which I did. I've seen dead bodies, I've seen vigilantes where they made their own police system and policing systems, and they just kill people because they need rid of them. Kind of agreed with some of it when certain things happened. Like, our friend nearly got abducted. She just nearly got taken, and the guys were like, "We are going to kill him now." I'm like, no, we need to go to the police. They're like, no. The police will, and they just say the police is just going to let him off, and they did. We took them to the police. We had to plead for him to not be murdered. But then they would inevitably go to the police, paid the police, and then there's like, see you, slap on the wrist and go. So I kind of see where the vigilantes come from, and corruption. But there was also a lot of community feels that I went through. So I worked my way all the way up and down South Africa, and I stayed with a lot of communities. And it was all based on very simplistic, beautiful essence and wholesome things. I go and live in a place called Bulangula for a few months. And honestly, it was, you catch a fish, come and share it here, we'll give you some warmth, we cook it together. And it was all that sort of thing I was seeing. And I thought, the amount of simplicity here that I'm experiencing, the happiness that everyone's on a day-to-day, not overthinking, they were the sort of things I came back with, rather than, haven't I got it lucky? I thought, bloody hell, I wished I hadn't been forced into working all the time and being in this certain way. But, like you say, the polar, I saw the real, where they didn't have the basic human needs met. They didn't have water, they didn't have food, they didn't have what you need to survive. So, I saw a big balance there. I saw a lot of things. Would you travel? Is that on your agenda?
I'd love to, but it's one of the things. I just don't know where I'd start with it. It's that I'd love to travel with music. That would be like my dream, to be able to tour with music. That would be incredible. But you know, it's just see how that goes. It's something that I would definitely do in the sort of the next couple of years. I was like talking to Charlie about it. It's things like, you know, we're talking about, you know, setting up for life and how I'm like starting to save up for like house deposits and that kind of thing. Just that kind of thing. But it just depends on how things go. Yeah, exactly. It's dropping myself into the real world and kind of I want to prepare myself to be able to land on my feet as soon as possible. Just trying to figure out how to do that in a way that is viable for a 19-year-old kind of thing. You know what I mean? Because
shocked me every time you say that, dude. Crazy.
But it's a crazy world, because it's like, you know, my grandparents, and especially my dad's quite, you know, he's an older parent. He's 78.
Nice.
And he's so he'll be 80 next year, I think.
Wow.
And sort of his generation, it's like at my age they were, you know, like in serious relationships, they were moving into houses. You know, like for example, my grandparents had, I think my mum at this, you know, at this point, and it's just crazy to think that, you know, we've come on 50, 60 years and life is so different, because it is more common than not for a 25-year-old still to be living at home with his parents, because it's so difficult for him to get onto the property or her to get onto the property ladder. And it's so, you know, everyday life now, especially over the last couple of years, I think the last sort of 10, 20 years, I want to say, with the decrease in things like apprenticeships and that kind of thing, the golden certificate of I can do this, I can do that has become so important and crucial into getting these top jobs, or getting an everyday job that is going to give you a wage whereby you can live a good life, but save enough to be able to, you know, work, you know, move into a house or whatever it is. But I think a lot of people nowadays, you know, in my opinion, things like hospitality has always been like a staple job for someone like myself, like a musician or anything, to go into. The first thing that you know, you think is, oh, go get a job in a bar or, you know, Tesco's or whatever it is to start yourself. But for me, those jobs are incredibly underpaid for what we do. I work in a bar, and it's you know, it's I absolutely love it. You know, my boss is amazing. The people I work with are great, but you know, if you think about it, we are we are there to provide enjoyment for everyone in that bar. We do everything. We make your drinks, we collect your drinks, we wash those glasses for you. We take the meal back to the kitchen if you don't like it or if it's undercooked. The chef recooks it, kind of thing. You know, there's so much to it, and you know, we barely get appreciated for it. I think there's an American, like not culture, but there's an American thing where the tip is automatically included in the bill, and that is, you know, goes straight to the people who are serving you. And we don't have that in this country, because
you notice it in American service as well. How they treat you. It's in the most positive, loving, we want you to have the best of experience ways here. And not saying that doesn't exist here, because it really does. And I can imagine coming into the bar with you and just thinking, we're going to be all right tonight. But the love and the passion isn't really there, and it needs to incentivize that. We need to be giving
I think we just need to sort of make a point that, you know, especially in the hospitality industry, there's a lot of young people working in it. Obviously not in the higher up jobs, but, you know, in the waitressing jobs. There's a lot of people who are on, like myself, I'm on, you know, like £6.50 an hour, which, you know, is good. It might be less than £6.50, I don't exactly know. There are friends that I've got working who are on a lot less than that because they're under 18 or whatever. And for those kind of people who are trying to save up, you know, they're getting out of that job, you know, for example, a skilled worker, a joiner, per day, nowadays you're looking anywhere between 180 and 250 pound a day. And a day out work that we get, sometimes we're working 8-12 hour shifts, and we'll get 50 to 70 quid.
Yeah, I mean, it's just quite a simple equation, isn't it? That the cost of living has gone up astronomically.
Yeah.
And then the minimum wage has just basically plateaued. And kept going up in 20p.
Yeah,
or something.
that's it. It's ridiculous.
Well, guys, how do you expect us to exist in this? How do you expect like mental health to not have a massive outbreak? How do you expect people to survive in this climate? And
100%.
I mean, I'm definitely from a place of privilege, and I honour that all the time. I'm very understanding and humble to the privilege that I've been given in my life, and I want better. That's why I'm more left-leaning. I'm central but left-leaning, because I think we need to have we need more winners in our society. And we do better by having more winners, and that's what I want from people. But we do need to, what we were alluding to and saying earlier, respect what we have got. And as a society, we're very honoured and lucky to be in a certain place where we're not being stoned to death for our political agendas or beliefs or sexual preferences and so on. And when I do see people getting so angry at one another and in themselves and on their posts and what they do, you just think, genuinely, go and live a little, go and experience a little. That's
you're
how
totally
I feel.
right. It's there's I think there just needs to be a bit of a change of perspective. I think a lot of people they still have, especially like my parents' generation, they still have that old school mindset. And actually, we're not living in the 1970s, 1980s anymore. This is 2021. Like, it's crazy. Some ththings that, like you say, you've got other countries that they're stoning people to death for their beliefs.
And sorry, I feel like I didn't want to deviate too far from your point, because I think we have the right to still be unsatisfied and not happy with how we're being treated, and want for better and push for better. It shouldn't be dismissed all the time from right people like, you're it, we've got it easy. There should be discussions that keep getting added to the mist, and we go, we're cool, thank you for not stoning us, but please may we have some money, and please may we have it equally shared. That's a fair thing to bring into the discussion.
100%.
And it's just discussions, isn't it? Genuinely, conversations being had. We don't have to dismiss things straight up.
No, you're right. And it's in terms of like political things, it's for me, like I'm very like a big believer, obviously, brought up, to be Labour centred and whatever, and all for the NHS, and you get this bias that we pay, quite a lot in tax, which I'm not opposed to. It's a good thing because it goes to positive things, but we get, we pay so much in tax that is supposed to go to helping us out as a country, and you slowly start to see the MPs getting pay rises and the NHS slowly being privatised, so that certain things you don't get on the NHS for free anymore. You have to pay for that, and that wasn't the point in the National Health Service. That was there to help everyone get free healthcare. And it's almost like it's being taken away from us. And it's that same thing. If you're expected to pay more taxes to fund the big boys' back pockets, their Range Rovers, their whatever, their expensive lifestyles, they need to give us something back. And
they do always do it as well in a really sort of clever way. Do you know what I mean? They do it every so often. Are you getting a little click?
A little bit, yeah. A little bit of a click.
A few minutes later.
So what I was saying, bloody politics.
It's ruining your equipment.
Do you think you'd do a podcast yourself? Is that a political one? Would you go more music based? Where would you go with it?
I love talking about anything. I can talk about anything that's thrown at me, and I just love that. My brother is extremely like clever. He's just like, he's got, not necessarily like academically, but in terms of like he loves talking about like alien life and all that kind of stuff. And I can just listen to him talk about that kind of extraterrestrial. Is there life on Mars? Is there all that kind of stuff? What's in our seas? And I love that.
And is he concluded?
Well,
it yet?
this is it. There's, you go back to him every time, and there's something different to add to it. And you think, wow. But those are the kind of things that I'd love to talk about. I'd love to do like a podcast discussing, the world and what the world we live in, and how things on other planets could be, and all that kind of stuff. I just think it's mental.
I love politics as a discussion, but then I used to be really into it, but I just felt like myself, I could change more actually going inside, working on myself, and then like, for instance, this sort of building a creative hub, bringing people together, and just being that change you want to see, and not working within the realms of politics, because it just felt, every time I tried to get into it, it was just bitey and aggressive, and I couldn't really get my point across.
People get really touchy on the political subjects that we've discussed, because everyone has a very strong opinion on it, and that's great, because it means there's so much out there to discuss, but it depends who you discuss it with, because there's certain people who will take it one way and they go at you, and all you're looking for is just a discussion of, well, this is my opinion, what's your opinion, kind of thing. I think that's great.
A listener, I think now. I listen to the politics on a podcast platform, and I think, that's interesting. I like to stay in the loop, but discussing wise, I've definitely steered towards the more extraterrestrial,
that's it.
What's in the seas, the escapism sort of conversations.
I agree. I think in terms of I think there's just more to talk about, because I find with politics it's so repetitive. You get talking about the same things and argue about the same things 24/7. That was the thing that it's really annoyed me over the last year. Just me and my grandma have always really had good discussions. We've got the same political views, and we just enjoy talking about it. But with everything that's going on over the last year, it's just repetitive. And I found myself at the start educating everybody else, saying, I was looking into the virus, and how it's affecting the body, and what the vaccines they're developing, and how they're developing them, and where they're coming from. And I found it so interesting. And then it got to January, and I just couldn't be arsed with it anymore. I wasn't watching the television. I was hating as soon as it came on. Saw Matt Hancock's face, Boris Johnson's face, and I switched it off straight away, because it would piss me off.
I know,
it really would.
I know that feeling.
And
genuinely,
I got, like, today, I had no idea that from today we are allowed to meet up with 6 people outside in our gardens. I had no idea.
Wow.
6 months ago,
right, get your phone out.
I'd been the first person to have told everyone that, but I just didn't know. My mum said, oh, you can do that, it's your birthday tomorrow, you can actually see people for once. I was like, what rock have I been living under?
I'm with you completely. I've sort of just tried to live the best way I could, and not tried to be over the top in just dismissing things again, and not trying to follow rules. But when it got too much for me, I was anxious about it. I just thought, do you know what? I'm going to be as responsible as I feel I can be. Be COVID safe, we didn't go mad when we saw each other, but do what I can do, and do what feels right. And a lot of people have lost that sense of trust in self. You need to be told what to do, and how to do it, and when to do it. And I suppose if you're following a structure, it makes a bit of sense, but inherently, I think we know when we're being wrong and when we're being right. And if we're being COVID safe and not. And I wouldn't go out my way to have a big festival and party and do. But carrying on with a bit of a podcast, seeing people from afar, a distant. I don't think the gym should have been shut, in honesty, in my opinion. Again, we're taking facts and figures into account. But it doesn't seem to have been a botherment of the government. They didn't look at all the possible facts and figures here and here and here. They just make a blanket statement for all, generalise for all. Does that make sense?
And fun that also in my eyes brings it back again to start the mental health aspect. Loads of people rely on the gyms. They rely on seeing people as it helps them through everyday life, and it was suddenly taken away from us within a couple of days. We weren't going to be in lockdown. Boris Johnson was shaking everybody's hands. 3 days later, he's shut us all down and scared us, within an inch of our lives, that, if we step outside our front door, unless it's for shopping, we're going to get killed by coronavirus. Which, in hindsight, a supermarket is like a breeding ground, and if you're going to pick it up from anywhere, it's going to be a supermarket. They're not wiping down all the food that people have touched. There's people going up and down the aisles. I understand that they put the arrows on, but no one listened to that. I went in Asda, and there were people walking against the arrows, dodging in and out of traffic, and you think, what?
Like the first when they opened back up, and it was straight to pubs, and gyms were still shut down. Whereas
the gyms, everybody, the rule is that you get off the equipment, you wipe it down with antibacterial spray.
And outdoor sports as well.
It's impossible to pass that on. And like Premier League football, that still went on pretty much throughout the second and third lockdown. But if they can manage to test their players, then why can't they do it for like Sunday football?
I think a lot of the time, if you want the root of the problem, you just follow the money.
No,
where
you're
they're
right,
making the money here,
you're right.
When's it going to be too much money here? And that seems to be a big root cause of it. Not willing to invest or not wanting to lose. It seems to be a big problem. I'm happy I'm outside of that. And when we did this podcast, it was escapism purely for me. I wanted to meet artists and creatives and speak all passions and walks of life. And when it's got into the political spectrum, I still find it really fascinating, really interesting. But I'm happy that I'm outside of that sphere so much now. I wouldn't class myself as a politician as I would before. That seems to be...
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. I did a podcast earlier on in the first lockdown with a guy called Jay Sandu. I think it's Jay Sandu. If I got it wrong, I'm really sorry. But I'm honestly really bad. I know his first name is Jay, but he's such a legend, and he's a comedian. Like that's
Wicked.
What he's like doing on the sidelines, similar like music. And
amazing.
We just had a chat about music and about our favourite albums. We had a good laugh. We told stories, and we did that online. It wasn't face to face, and even that for the first lockdown was just great. It was just something different. We managed to just sit there, chat. I had headphones on. I had my mic set up, and I wasn't even looking at the computer screen. I'd got Jay in my ear, and I was just talking.
Sounds beautiful.
To me, that was incredible. And while it was talking about music and that stuff that was relevant, that kind of thing, I just think being able to just sit there, just completely ignore everything that's going on in the world, and just chat about whatever, anything it may be, and just be able to let loose a bit is just so
the beauty
positive.
Of podcasts, isn't it? I'm so glad to see them thriving at the minute and coming out, propping up from everywhere. I really try and get everyone to start one. You need to do a podcast. Why? Just meet
good
people.
To talk about,
good to talk.
Definitely. But I think definitely, like, if I was going to do a podcast, like you're saying, it'll be discussing like the supernatural.
Okay. Like, have you seen any documentaries on that? Then have you?
I've watched a couple, but it's one of them things that if I'm going to watch telly, it would really interest me, but I'd rather put on Family Guy or something like that, because instantly for me, that's what I go to.
It's an easy choice.
That's it, and it's that those podcasts. The TV shows. You have to watch those, and my attention span
can be sporadic.
It's either that I'm really hooked and nothing else matters, or I watch it for like 30 seconds and I pick up my phone and I'm scrolling through Instagram, and then I'll miss something. I'll think that really interested me, and I'll be rewinding it, trying to play it there, and then I'll be back on my phone again, and it's just like,
I think I was definitely like that, and I must say I do steer towards South Park every day. It's really hard. You're like, there's a really interesting documentary. South Park.
Yeah.
I'm so hooked on it, but I'm trying to train myself a little more on my attention span. I think everything can be trained to a degree. Obviously, you've got a better way of learning and picking up stuff, because I really struggle with reading. I've tried my best to train myself, and I'll read a page and just go, completely don't know what I just read then. Go through it again. I think, why am I making this such a process? But when I'm listening or watching, it seems to be a better way of me picking up information. So with podcast, I've got a treadmill now, and I walk in there, something on in front of me, and I'm growing my fascination and my learnings there.
Definitely.
But then when it is time to chill, South Park all the way. Have you watched many South Parks?
I've it's something that my brother used to watch so much, like through the 90s and stuff, and that was his go-to show. If you are interested in politics,
so it's definitely knows how to take a point and run with it and sort of get the core seed out of that point. Interesting.
I'm definitely, it's something that I just started watching Rick and Morty, which I'm so late to the party with. I know, but I'm absolutely loving that.
What episodes have you seen recently?
I've just finished, I think it's like season 2 episode 4. I think I've just finished the one where they went to like a wedding and
the galactic space the galactic space wedding,
and it's the Birdman's wife is like infiltrated that. So I've just finished watching that, but I find at the moment, like, my biggest thing is, like, when I relax, I don't go to, I used to be like mad into watching TV series, but recently, since I've got Logic and my home, like, kind of studio setup,
honing in on your music,
that's
and craft.
all I do is I'll either go and play FIFA, like, or I'll be in my head in that
escapism or creativity.
That's it, exactly. It's funny because I'll go into my bedroom and I'll shut my bedroom door and I'll be there for like 3 hours, and I'll come out and I'll find every door between myself and where my parents are sitting has been shut, because I'm like that loud into it or whatever. And they're all
what are you creating mainly?
Just like demos, and I spend a lot of time sort of just, I'll either be just sat there and I can spend maybe 3 days and just be maybe playing like covers or just messing about and whatever, and then I'll get this idea that I really like and I'll work on that and I'll have a song from it, and then I'll work on a demo for it, and that demo can, take me 5 days, it can take me a day.
How do you describe your sound? What is your music?
My music is sort of a mixture between like the first 2 Coldplay albums, mixed with St. Raymond. It's like an indie pop artist from Nottingham. Like it's sort of like if you bought, in my eyes, it's like big anthems in 2021 kind of thing. That's how I like it.
That's cool.
And I just love that big sound, like the big vibes, like Kings of Leon, Coldplay, like Bombay Bicycle Club, all that kind of stuff. Like, that's my music.
Do you like being versatile in your music?
Yeah, 100%. I really want to, like, recently I've decided I want to start doing a lot more with other artists and
collabs and stuff.
Yeah, collabs, but also just venturing outside of my style, because I want to push myself to improve my writing, but also that, like last year I found myself, especially during the first lockdown, doing loads of writing in my style, and it came to the second lockdown and I'd like run out of ideas.
I get you.
And I'd exhausted what I was creatively, my genre. I'd almost exhausted myself, and I thought, I'm bored of this now, and that's not like me. I don't, if I'm loving it, I don't ever get like that. I was finding myself like, wow, this is not good. And I wanted to start listening to new music and getting into new styles. And I just started listening to loads of new music, and that was where I started now trying to get more influences like Bon Iver kind of stuff into my music, where it's more the the kind of stuff that you can just play and vibe to in the background, those kind of styles. And I don't, I think you've had Sam Heaton on here before.
Yeah, Sam's
so
cool.
Heirloom, I love their sort of, it's really vibey music.
Great big sounds.
Exactly, yeah, huge sounds.
More sounds, adding sounds.
Exactly, yeah. And I love that idea, but it's that I just want to start pushing myself in terms of, especially looking into a future in music of how I can create a future for myself and create a sort of a ground to work upon. And for me, that is progressing myself so that I can be, versatile and do, lots of different genres. And that's just kind of what I want to start doing now, rather than just working on myself. Working on others to better myself in a way, if that makes sense.
Are lyrics quite important to you in your music?
For me, lyrics are really hit and miss. I can write a really good set of lyrics that I really like, or I can write a set of really crappy pop lyrics that are just awful. Do
you enjoy creating them though?
Yeah, 100%. I think lyrically, there's a few tracks recently that I've started sort of delving slightly deeper into lyrics, and definitely my lyric writing, you'll speak to Charlie, he says it's got so much better over the past year, because I'm just trying to progress myself as a person. I think rather than writing sort of immature kind of the whole
emphatic,
the things that you hear in pop music, I love you and all that kind of crap. You just think
not really
just
any substance into it.
Exactly. I'm trying to sort of delve a bit deeper into sort of what I want the songs to mean and how I want the songs to be received as well.
Suppose as you live life and go through experiences, it's gonna keep on evolving and keep on building.
Yeah. So it's definitely something that I'm really looking forward to over the next year, getting into writing. And I've now started trying to base my songs off of a word or a title or something like that, rather than just sitting there and thinking what comes to mind. The first thing, writing off the cuff, which is great. I've done that on a couple of songs. There's a song called Into the Middle, which was literally just an off the cuff.
Ad-lib
exactly. It was something that I came up with the shower. I was like, is it a sin to jump off the edge? Is it a sin to take a leap of faith? And I was like, oh, this is great, So I just sort of, that's where that lyric came from. But then there's another song called For Happiness, which is a deeper meaning for me, because it kind of represents my struggles over the last couple of years and how I overcame them. And
I love lyrics like that.
Yeah,
where you can hear a piece of a person.
Yeah, that's it, exactly. And I just wanted to include that into it, where it wouldn't just be necessarily for me, but people can relate to it as well. But those kind of lyrics that I'd started with a word, for example, with For Happiness, it came with that idea of happiness and what surrounds it for me. And it took a turn of actually what is forced upon us, what we do it all for happiness, but why do we do that for happiness? And that aspect came to me, and I wanted to discover that in lyrics.
Wow.
Whereas, and there's another song called Perspective, which again I focus on perspective, and the chorus is, I need perspective in my life, which is,
it's a really unique way of doing it.
Yeah, and that's what I wanted to sort of this sort of try and put my individuality on it, rather than going about the normal way that people
spin
do.
And your understanding.
Yeah, and I think a lot of people, I've done so many discussions with so many musicians about write 1,000 songs and get one hit out of it, something like that. And I really like that idea, but personally for me, I'm not musically sort of not aware but capable enough to do that. There's no way I'd be able to write 1,000 songs in a week, or you know what I mean, just be able to write ideas, because music isn't necessarily something that comes naturally to me. It's not something that I was brought up playing guitar. I started when I was 9, but I did a half an hour session a week because I thought it was cool. I wanted to show off at school kind of that I played guitar. And I never concentrated on it, but it's not something that, I know any theory about or anything like that. I wouldn't be able to go like, oh, you know, like play this scale over that'd be really cool, or this melody is great. Like what I write comes off the cuff there and then, and it's not it's not necessarily sort of a planned out, you know, right, I want to write a song in this key, this way, this chord progression. To me, I'll just be messing about, this will work, that's really cool, that's a cool chord progression, that's a cool lick, let me center the song around that. And that's how I go about writing.
So
which
quite playful with it as well.
Yeah,
then.
exactly. It's I think a lot of artists can get bogged down with, you know, why can't I write this? Why can't I do this? Why is it so difficult? And really, it's just, music should be a relaxing thing. It should be something that you're enjoying, that you go into and get hyped up about, rather than trying to write an EP or trying to write this, or I've got to have this single out for this date or that date. It's just like feeling what's right for you and what works. And
it's a good piece of advice for artists.
I think it is. It's just whatever you're feeling, just do it, kind of thing. It's
and
not,
don't feel guilty for not feeling a certain
I've
way.
I've gone months and months without writing anything new, but it's not something bad, because, you know, you'll get through this creative patch of, you know, of nothingness, and you'll get maybe a week and you'll be really productive, and you'll write a song and, you know, it'll be great. But like for people who aren't necessarily massively into writing, and for people who aren't experiencing it, you know, they only know a couple of chords on a guitar. Like for me, you'll struggle, but that makes the end result so much better. And don't stress yourself out about it. Don't go, I'm going to write a song, I'm going to do this. Just
completely agree.
Just kind of take it. You're a musician, you'll know exactly.
I'm the other way as well. I felt, because I'm getting into music, I had to play an instrument. Or I had to be musically gifted. Or I had to understand the knowledge base of music. But actually, what I enjoyed was writing. Lyrics, they just come to me, and I love writing so much. So every day, if I wanted to, and I sat there and I thought today's a poetry day, I could write. Because I love thinking at times when I'm actually using my thinking, and my thinking is not using me. But I get to use that. I love to, again, like we say, listen to podcasts, decipher what I've been listening to, decipher documentaries, philosophies. Always just been so interested in that. So when it comes to writing, I've always had this philosophical or thought out way about me, and that just comes. But the other sides, I always used to beat myself up for not knowing a scale, or not knowing how to play guitar, or so on. So just being comfortable and relaxed in your skill set and what you're about, and
that's it.
You can venture, you can try things.
No, that's it. That's, like you say, you know, it's worth trying things out. But like for me, like I know very little music theory, but from that, I like, not to blow my own trumpet, but I create songs that I really love, and that I really vibe to. So
it all does come back all the way back round to what we're talking about, knowing self.
It is.
The more you know yourself, the better you can conduct yourself.
And you know, another thing in the music industry is people like to think that they've got to create a song. I remember having a discussion with another musician, and them sort of saying, oh, well, you know, I've got some really cool songs, but I really need like a commercial pop song, so that I can get famous off of that, and then I can write whatever I want to write. And that should never be how you go about it. It should be what you want to create, and if you enjoy it, people will follow. If you create stuff that you're really enjoying, people will see that, and it'll reflect in the content you're making. Rather than forcing, you know, trying to make a song that is going to be, you know, a number one, or that's like, oh, it's going to be like Justin Bieber. Like that's
feels contrived.
Feels saturated. It should never be. That's it. It's so saturated, and so everyone's trying to do it. So just be yourself and try and do something different, and you can guarantee the content you'll make will be 10 times better.
I couldn't agree more, man.
Forcing it.
Fully agree. Dude, it's so hot on the back of this
It
bus.
is, isn't it?
I'm ready to go inside and
Yeah.
have a bit of a drink, a
Yeah,
Rooney,
definitely.
and play Dad for a bit. But would you come back on?
100%. I'd love to.
Should we? I'll open the windows up next. I don't know
Yeah.
why I didn't. That door opens there. We've got to that end bit. And I'm like, right, diving
It is
out
windy
there in a minute.
outside though, so you can guarantee we'd have been blown away from it. Or something,
We've had everything
Yeah,
on here, but I've
definitely.
really enjoyed it.
Yeah,
It's been
100%.
great.
Thank you for having me on. It's
Such
been
a
a
lovely
privilege. It's been
human
a
being.
privilege. Thank you.
It's been a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to meet you properly, and we made it happen.
Yeah, I know. Finally.
Where can people find all your stuff and everything about you?
So Instagram is the main page. It's Jack Chapman Music. I've got Facebook as well, which is Jack O Chapman Music, just because Jack Chapman Music was taken, which can't believe it. Yeah,
What a
I was well pissed off. That's it at the moment.
Awesome.
Hopefully there'll be more.
And we've got some
platforms
good
soon.
stuff coming up.
Yeah, hopefully. Fingers crossed.
Yeah, we've
fingers
got any
crossed.
dates on things?
Not a fixed date, but early May is going to be the
Yeah.
first single. So that's
I
exciting.
can't wait, dude. Right. Well, thank you again for being a part of the Old Farm Bus, Back at the Bus Sessions podcast. Let's leave it on this. Be nice to one another, you wonderful buggers. See you later.
Cheers.
Big love, Jack.